Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 5 of That's the Key podcast. Thanks for checking in with me, y'all. This is getting a little bit easier. It's getting a little bit easier. We're getting a little bit better at it. The setup process is becoming a little bit easier. I can't say that the editing process has become easier just yet, but we're going to figure out. And I got a good feeling that this editing and uploading this week is going to be easy peasy. I'm speaking it into existence so I can get this content posted this week. It is football Sunday. And after a few very embarrassing weeks, I mean, heavy on the intramurals, heavy on the very bad high school football team, we've had a nice win today. The Commanders beat the Giants 29-21. So we are feeling good in the city. Which is also great because I think everybody was super excited about the Dallas game on Christmas and then very unexcited because what? Nobody is about to pay money and sit in the cold on Christmas to mess around with the Commanders doing a whole lot of losing, right? So I feel like this was a good win we needed today for a little momentum. So the Commanders play the Eagles on Saturday. I'm actually considering getting tickets. So me and my girlfriend who actually like the Eagles, we might go together in the name of a Kiki. But also, I don't like that walk up to FedEx Field when we lose. Like losing that loser walk don't feel good, especially if somebody gonna be talking too much trash. So put a pin in it and let's see if I make it to the Commanders game on Saturday. In other sports news, last week, Lamont Roach fought Pitbull Cruz. Did y'all catch that fight? It was a good fight. Like, I would say definitely worth the $75. That's a big, I feel like that's a lot of money to watch something in the house. But it was a good fight. And I feel bad. It was a draw, of course. If you didn't watch it now, I'm sure you've heard of it now. That joint felt good for the city, though. Like, I think Lamont is definitely showing up for the city right now and making us look and feel good. I love how he carries himself. I'm a boxing girl over the last couple years since I started boxing at my gym, and my trainer actually trains boxers. So I love the boxing community. I love the culture of it, and I love boxing in DC. Like DC got a lot of nice boxing gyms in the boxing and fight community. In this city, Baltimore too, Philly, like this part of the East Coast, super cool boxing community. But Lamont doing this big one. And unfortunately, he didn't walk away with the win. But I absolutely felt like, to me, he won. I felt like he outboxed him. There was no knockouts, but I think it definitely wasn't a draw. I think he won. But also, like, the job peep, when they announced the judges, he fought Pitbull in San Antonio, Texas, with a whole panel of Mexican judges too. So I don't even know if he 100% got a fair shake. I think both sides have to agree on the officiants on the matches, right? So I hope he got a fair shake, but I can't say 100% that he did. But nevertheless, I want to say congratulations to Lamont, but my man is not happy. He feels like he's not getting it after the Tank fight. This situation, he definitely probably did get robbed again. So congratulations to him nonetheless. And let's just see what Lamont's going to do next, because this really is just the beginning for him. So good for boxing in the city. We love it. Other really important TV news. So important. Love After Lockup is coming back on January 16th. And y'all know we like Love After Lockup. Like, that is our jam. Everybody that's my friend that actually watched that show, we like it and we love it. And Monique will be back. So if you are a Love After Lockup fan, Monique will be back on January 16th with a new person. Because remember, the dude that she was on with initially, I think they got banned from the network. Well, he got banned from the network for like domestic violence or something. There was something that he did that was either aggressive or violent while they were actually taping the show. So he was not asked to return. And I think by default, she was not asked to return for one of the follow-up shows. But apparently she's back and she got a new piece of lockup meat. So I'm excited. I can't wait. Like, I'm anticipating this like Game of Thrones. I love After Lockup. So put a pin in that as well. We're going to definitely dish about that every week because I love talking about that show. In podcast news, so I have also been listening to a lot, like a podcast lately, different podcasts, and I love the Let's Rap About It podcast. Have y'all seen that yet? It's the podcast with Jim Jones, Dave East, Fabulous, and Mano. I want to say they might have 10 or 11 episodes now, but it feels so familiar. The podcast feels so familiar, and it feels like you watching like your friends or you're like your brothers sit and just talk. They just rapping. Like, let's rap about it. That's what they doing. Superman time, super just regular, not too much anything, not too much too ghetto, not too much anything. It's just very regular and very good. Like, I love those lifestyle. I love lifestyle content that's authentic, and really it do. It just feel like you watching homies talk, which I guess it kind of is, but I find a podcast to be very interesting. I feel like they're definitely gonna be next up. That group of four is gonna be up next, and they are so funny. Like, Jim Jones is hilarious to me, and they all play off of each other very well. And I just talk about lifestyle stuff, things going on with our community, but at their age and perspective, and that's what makes it good because nobody wants to hear like old rappers trying to act young, right? But they also talk a lot about that too. Like, that this particular group loves the culture. They like rap, so they not really talking bad about the youngins and the new music or whatever. So they're in their lane, but they're also talking about stuff like grown men. So I find it to be very interesting. So let me know in the comments if y'all watch or listen to the Let's Rap About It podcast and tell me how you feel about that one. Because for real, when I watched it, it makes me want to do like a segment with like three of my girlfriends from time to time. Like, let's sit down and talk about some of these things. Anytime you're watching something and it makes you want to be a part of it, I feel like that's good entertainment or good content. So if you haven't checked it out, check out the Let's Rap About It podcast. Okay, and this is what I've been waiting to talk about. Y'all know what time it is. The Diddy doc. So for those of you all who know me or don't know me, whatever level of anything it is, I was a Diddy fan. Probably even take it as far as to say a stan. Diddy was the culture. I feel like we were raised on Diddy. Diddy raised us in a lot of different ways. And I say that lightly now because we're clearly not the same people. We're not built the same. We're not built the same. Hard stop. But to add to that, previously, super big bad boy fan. And then fast forward, y'all know I like court shows and I like watching trials. So I very much followed the whole entire trial. So the Diddy doc was right on time. I know there was a lot of controversy around 50 Cent being the person to release it and, all that type of stuff. And I feel like people gave 50 a hard time or maybe a lot of judgment before they actually watched it, right? And what you have to remember is, regardless of, at least to me, this is my perspective. Regardless of how you feel about 50 and their relationship or what previously 50 has done or, any of that type of stuff, I thought it was a very journalistic piece, right? Like, it felt very documentary. It wasn't extra skewed or extra biased one way or the other. I don't feel like he did anything extra to make him look bad. I just think if you do bad things, you look bad. Like, I don't know, you can't make some of the stuff that you do, you cannot make look good. Like, that's just what it comes down to. So I think as far as production goes, the Diddy doc was very journalistic. I don't feel like it was extra skewed either on on either end, because there was definitely stuff in there that made Diddy look not so bad based on people's perspective. But then, of course, a lot of stuff that did make him look bad. But the sad part about it is most of the things that made him look bad were videos of himself talking and doing things. So you look bad coming out of your own mouth. So there's that. That's my thought about the whole production. But to take a little bit of a deeper dive, the documentary had a lot of pieces of information and different snippets that we have seen before, right? But it was a combination of the commentary and a few additional people talking that I would say that the Diddy doc this time was a thought piece for me, right? I don't think that there was anything totally new. Well, no, there was a few things that definitely shifted my perspective. But I will say that this doc shifts how I see the whole thing, right? Like I've been off Diddy because I just find him to be like now at this point, oh, it's just sad. Like it's sad, but now it's really like the dude is pathetic. Like he's so pathetic, and I hate that. Like somebody that we once felt was so big, he's just the dude pathetic, dog. He's going out so bad. But let's talk about the dog. So also, the other thing that I've realized is who is raising some of y'all. Okay, I'm not gonna argue with nobody in any comments about anything, but especially not with people that I'm not sure are if they are intentionally being obtuse or they're just not thought processing things the correct way, or people are just horrible too because it's like some of the comments it's just like y'all cool? Like, that's how y'all really feel? So, all that to say, some of y'all sons are predators. Watch out. And yeah, that's the story. Also, some of y'all daughters have been abused, and that's why they talk like that as well. So, check on some of y'all daughters because they ain't healing. Because the way that they're talking, some of these women are talking, they are very much deep into that abuse cycle. So, that's important to know too. But the whole documentary, so it starts with videos of Diddy like days before he gets arrested. And my initial thought was like, who's recording this and why? Right? Like, why are you even doing this? Like, it's him talking on the phone to his attorneys and stuff. But then it fast forward and it tells you that he hired someone to record record him, like to cameras to follow him. So then that's when you realize there's no part of Diddy that thought he was going to jail or he was absolutely about to be convicted of these crimes or that the indictments were going to stick or I don't know. But this is about to be the footage for his return to championship, right? He expected that this footage was going to be his, like, look at this black man, they did me so bad and I had to do all of this to get back to wherever, and now look at me on top of the world. But unfortunately, it didn't go that way for him. So now these videos are just like the soundtrack to his sad ass life. Like, it's just his sad, pathetic life because he's just not a good person. They talk a lot about and there's so many people in it. Like there's so many people in it, like telling their stories. People that were very close to the Bad Boy Empire, Diddy professionally, Diddy personally, but also interesting because we didn't hear from people that like had a lot to say before. Like we didn't hear from Cassie. Cassie was not a part of this interview. So again, it told stories from a different perspective that we hadn't heard a lot of before. And I definitely think it gave you some kind of space to understand really like how Diddy became Diddy, right? So they start talking about, how he was raised and his childhood with his mom and things like that. And it's pretty clear that I'm pretty sure his mom was like a madam. I don't know. I can't call it for real because I don't know. But she definitely did something. She might have hustled. She might have just been, I don't know. But nevertheless, she did something. And they talk about, Janice used to have all of these parties when he was younger. And, they had this lifestyle. And she made him, what was actually said in the interview was that she created Diddy to be her own, like, personal young dandy, right? Which is okay. That makes sense for that time. That dapper look, that dapper Dan look, very, very stylish, very sophisticated. But then fast forward a couple of minutes later, he also said, but Janice didn't want to Janice was raising a prince. She didn't want to raise no princess. And so that to me was like very strange word tracking in that circumstance because who even brought that up and what was going on at Diddy's young age that someone that was raised with him had to denote that the mother did not want to raise a princess, right? So that was a little bit of the thing started going on in my head, like, okay, what was Diddy doing when he was younger? But then we also talk about all of these parties that Janice is having, right? So the father is dead. Again, there's a lot of different stories about the father too. Some say he was a hustler, some say he was a driver. We don't really know. I don't think Diddy knows. I think he's creating his own story about whatever he wanted his father to be, which also I feel like has created this framework for this hyper whatever black man that he desires to be is based on whatever he's created in his mind about his own father, right? But they said Janice used to have all of these parties with like the pimps, the hustlers, the drug dealers, the ball players, all of that type of stuff. But again, the part that stood out to me was amidst all these parties, late night partying and drinking and drugging, they would tell Diddy to come downstairs and dance. That's not normal, y'all. That is not normal. It's one thing to be like, oh yeah, y'all the cook, y'all down to the cookout, and your auntie's like, show me how to do the butterfly, or y'all at Thanksgiving dinner, and it's like, yeah, niece, show me the TikToks, nephew, show me how to do this new TikTok dance. That's one thing, which is absolutely appropriate. But late night drinking and drugging, pimps, hoes, whoever, bringing a little boy downstairs to dance. First of all, it was the 70s. People wasn't smoking weed. They was doing heroin and everything else. I don't even know at this age when adults are around doing whatever it is they are doing that they want a whole bunch of kids around. But could you imagine in the 70s, people in there, they doing whatever they want to do for money, getting high as a kite, and then your funny 8-year-old start coming downstairs and dancing? It's not entertaining. Get this kid out of here. But it was entertaining because they was doing something to that little boy. That's what I think. Like, again, this is all just my analysis of this situation. These are not facts. This is just how I have digested this. But my good logic tells me if there's a little kid dancing late night around people who are drinking and stuff, somebody's doing something to that kid. And if they're not doing it in that moment, someone has done something to that kid. So that was the first thing where it's like, okay, so the mother's throwing all these parties, and only God knows what they were doing to that boy at a young age. So then he fast forwards and he becomes that demon, right? Like, he doing all these parties, and I feel like at some point he really just did what he saw, and it just went so far, right? It went so far. And I like what I saw somebody said, something along the lines of, and this might be a controversial opinion too, but you never know what you would do until you had the money to do exactly what you want to do. And I think this is a very good case of that, right? Like, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I think we can all be honest about that. And we can say, you don't know what you would do until you had the money to do exactly what you want to do, right? And so that's when you would hope that you have a certain level of morals that wouldn't go so far. But it's clear that he has all the money to do all the things that he wants to do. And then so based on whatever he's seen in the past, that's what he starts to do. So that was, when I talk about like the little thought pieces, that little whole idea about his upbringing and how his mother was having him dance at the parties and stuff, that to me, that sounds messed up. That sounds real messed up to me. That sounds like they had that kid doing some inappropriate adult stuff, and only God knows what he got mixed up in or saw or felt or who felt him or whatever at a young age. So that very much probably was his villain origin story, right? So, sad perspective, but that is probably where the monster began. They also said the mother used to beat him real bad. Okay, like real bad, which the abuse cycle, again, people reproduce what's done to them very often. So, um, did he? I don't know. He had no sweet. I don't know if he had no sweet childhood, but he definitely he definitely saw or went through some things that I feel like created the Diddy that we knew, good and bad. Right? Those things shaped him to be whatever, and it probably just got a little bit out of control. So then we fast forward, like the whole documentary is like showing him, it's like his I Love New York tour. He's driving around, he's like shaking hands, kissing babies. They're recording him riding his bike. He just looks out of place and awkward, right? Like, he looks like he's riding around a city that he does not come to. And that really is what it comes down to, right? That New York and his New York are two different things. So he's coming down trying to give face and like show the people he's outside and doing well, like in the name of like everybody loves Diddy, but it looked real fake even when you're watching it, because it's like, this don't look right. He don't look normal. But then he gets in the car and talk about all them people. Like, oh, I have to take a shower. I need, what did he say? Not alcohol. He needs something in the shower. Like it just was like all right, Diddy, we get it. Shaking hands can cause germs. But nobody told you to go out there and do it. You the one out there doing all that stuff. So don't pander to these people in the name of making yourself look good and then go back and talk about them. Because then it's like, yeah, you are the bad guy. Like, you're the bad guy. You could have just stayed home. So he's doing all of that, carrying on, and they also talk about his background. So then the other big thing that I realize is, so many parts of his life were marked by like tragedy. And when I mean tragedy, I mean absolute deaths. People are dying around this dude. Like, stay away from Diddy because you might die. The whole thing started with that basketball game in '91. 9 people got killed at that basketball game because of, again, a little bit of greed. They're saying the thing was oversold. And we know that. We all been to a party where the promoter was super lit, or an event where it's like they overshot. They overshot the event, and so many people showed up, so many people came, and at some point it had to get shut down. But thankfully, I've never been to one of those events that had to get shut down, and people started stampeding and stomping on each other and getting crushed. So that's what happened at the thing. And then there's literally audio of him saying, "I became famous off a tragedy." And it's like, oh God, you did. So it starts there. And I mean, and then we know, I mean, there is a plethora of deaths that follow him after that point. Like, we don't even need to name them all, but we know them. So starts off like that, and then it almost seems like he identified with that. The idea that, yeah, this tragedy built me. It's what made me. But it didn't feel humble. It just felt like, yeah, I'm bigger than a program, for real. And I think that is the point where he started realizing, yes, he is bigger than the program, and he needed to be the program. And then enter Andre Harrell. And so the documentary has so many different pieces, but then that Andre Harrell, those, and they might have, again, picked some sensational ones, but the body language and everything with the videos of him and Andre Harrell is very odd. And then it's like, but it's nothing new. Again, it's nothing new. I just feel like we're seeing him in a different way than we've seen him before. But like, yeah, Diddy made himself very valuable to Andre Harrell. Only God knows what that really means at this point. But he moved in his house, and then he became Diddy. He became Diddy after that point. But it's also like, you can very much see that that's where he started with that whole, they were like, Diddy would run to the store. He would do all of this stuff in the name of the grind. And that's what we loved Diddy for at that point, where it seemed like he was this big hustler, but he was willing to do the work. He was going to work hard, and this is what it takes to get the job done. But now it also feels like, well, what else was he doing to get the job done? Because some of this stuff ain't really feeling clean, something dirty in the milk, right? So the Andre Harrell situation, but amidst that, he done burnt all the bridges. I didn't realize Misa used to deal with Eric Sermon. We always knew about the Kim Porter thing and the I'll Be Sure. We knew about Cassie from Ryan Leslie. And then suddenly you realize it's this pattern of, like, somebody said it. It was like, if you was the man's girl, he wanted to be the man, so he had to get the man's girl. And it's just like, yeah, okay. Okay, so then enter Kalina Harper. She, to me, was very interesting in this documentary because her story is a little bit different, right? She was in Diddy Dirty Money. She kind of came in a later part of, like, his music career. And if I'm being really transparent, the way that Kalina talks about Diddy is probably how I felt about Diddy until recently. Like, she was like, you get around this dude, his energy is so crazy, and it makes you feel like you got to go harder. And I always say, that's how they would have got me. I don't care about being famous. I don't care about proximity to celebrity. I don't care about none of that. I'm trying to get to the bag. So Diddy wouldn't have been able to drug me at the freak off, but Diddy would have been able to drug me at 2 o'clock at work. Because if he would have said, walk across the bridge for the cheesecake, me at 20 years old, 22 years old, man, I would have walked across the bridge fast, quickly to get, like, this would have taken to work for Diddy. So that's how they would have got me. Kalina Harper seemed to have a very different perspective, but she got burnt too. Because it's like, when I needed you, you wouldn't help me out, and then you would ask me for something. Like, apparently she was going through some custody thing, and she needed some money. He wouldn't give her no money, and then turn around and ask her to make a statement when he realized he was getting indicted with all these charges. So her perspective was a little bit different because she came in, and she's one of the few I don't think had any sexual relationships with him. So she's kind of seeing everything at a later point when a lot of this stuff had already been done. He already is who he is. And she's saying, like, some of the stuff she saw, some of it didn't. It wasn't her reality, but she could also respect that it was somebody else's reality. But she's one of the ones, to me, for real, that just, if you would have just paid her, she wouldn't have probably had nothing to say. Because she didn't get beat, I don't think. So her perspective, again, Interesting because not a lover, not a romantic partner, but definitely had her own kind of situation. Again, one of those people that I feel like 50 put in the thing, and it don't make Diddy look as bad as some of the other ones. So why I felt like it was an honest journalistic piece. We also had Joy Dickerson. She's one of the first people to come forward as a Jane Doe to press charges against Diddy. Apparently, he essayed her in 1991 as well, or maybe in the early 90s. And then you know that scene in Paid in Full where Alpo is showing like himself. Alpo Martinez is having sex with a woman that he recorded, and he shows it in the club. Apparently, Diddy did the same thing to this girl, that he had some kind of sexual relationship with her and recorded it without her knowledge and then played it in a public space. And so she's getting on there telling her story after all of these years. And again, I tend to feel like I believe her because I don't know what it would benefit her to come out and say that now, other than money. But that's very embarrassing. Like I don't just see people making up or acting like somebody's lying about something that they're not lying about. That brings a lot of shame to themselves. Kirk Burroughs, so that's his childhood. I mean, one of the people that he met when he was younger, and he was one of the original founders of Bad Boy. Well, he got dicked out of his 25% of the company, never to return. And then he also, at the very end, if you watched it, said Diddy essayed him too. Like he's telling about all the ways that he was, violated, maybe financially or just abused in the workplace. But then he also says that he was also violated. So it's like, okay, Diddy, all right. Capricorn, she's another one. So that's Cap is who Cap is literally the person that they would have got me with, because I remember watching Making the Band or Who Wants to Work for Diddy and seeing Capricorn Clark and being like, oh, I can do that. Like I can do that. Like somebody talking a little bit crazy to me at that age, I could charge it to the game in the name of I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna be able to do better. This is just what it takes to make it. I would have been a Capricorn Clark, but when you would have taken me in the woods telling me because my best friend baby father is Suge that if stuff goes wrong, you gonna kill me. I don't know if I would have came back to work the next day. I probably just would have not come back. I probably just would have stayed home. I don't know. Again, hindsight is 2020. It's easy to say what we would do in those circumstances now that we know everything. But at 21 or 22, I might not have. But I just feel like if somebody told me that there's a possibility that they would bring me back to the park to kill me, I probably would just stay away from them. Mark Curry. Mark Curry hate Diddy. And I don't know if Mark Curry is as good of a rapper as he thinks he is. I don't particularly recall being no big Mark Curry fan and or really knowing any Mark Curry stuff other than like take this money, make this money. Ain't no way you can take this from me. That's Mark Curry, right? That he's on that song, maybe? I don't know. But nevertheless, Mark Curry hates Diddy and he hates how he raps. He said he wrote his good rap for the I don't know, some show, some movie, and he was just saying he's not good, but I don't know how important Mark Curry was to the overall story. But he's just another line in the it's like, do anybody got anything nice to say about Diddy? I'm sure there's somebody that does have something nice to say about him professionally, but ain't nobody came out and said nothing. Like nobody has come out to speak in his defense, and that to me is probably the most telling part of it all. That where your friends? Like where is somebody in the industry to step up and be like, oh nah, Puff okay, Puff's good. Like no, he probably whatever it is, everybody's staying quiet. The other end of that is how much is everybody else involved in too. So, 6, 7, I don't know. Like people might be being quiet just to keep their own, proverbial dogs in the closet or whatever, however you say that. The other piece that was interesting was the jurors. So they had a lot of commentary from the jurors. And I mean, obvious because I think he had 20 indictments, only a couple stuck. So they didn't really believe a lot of that stuff. They didn't believe Capricorn on the stage. They said they felt like Cassie and Diddy had a unusual love affair. That I think that's the word they use. Unusual love affair. And it's like, yeah, very unusual. So they didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. So they didn't really side with them, which is why he was found not guilty for a lot of those things. Again, another point that this it couldn't be all bad because these people was saying they didn't believe certain stuff. They just felt like, well, why would she leave and then go back and do the things? We can talk about that again, and I'm gonna come back to that at the end. But then the other things are like, okay, so this is the big one that I think really got me too. I don't know that or I put it like this: I didn't know that Pac didn't really bang with Puff, right? So they also go into talking about how it was very clear that Big and Puff had a really good relationship, and it seems like Pac and Big. Pac seems to really want to have a professional and personal relationship with Big, but not with Puff. And Puff did not like that. He didn't like it. And then so you realize it's like, oh, this is a real jealous dude, right? He a real jealous dude. And then so once he realized that like Pac was trying to be on with Big, he wasn't banging no more because he got to be the one. And that is the other thing that I would say opened my eyes up to this documentary. We think about all these years, Puff has had a million acts, right? And they always only go so far. And it's like, man, this dude is very money hungry. Like, he's greedy. Like, ain't no way that he's messing up everybody's money. But then you realize, yeah, there's a way because he is actually very greedy. He likes that control piece. But then now it kind of is starting to feel like, based on all these other conversations, is that he don't want nobody to be bigger than him. So at the point that any of his artists could potentially financially do better than him or have some kind of success that he didn't control, it almost seemed like, yeah, Puff just kind of a hater. Like, he didn't really want to push nobody's stuff so nobody wouldn't get bigger than him. So after hearing that whole story with about Tupac and Biggie, then of course, they talk about Biggie didn't want to be in LA. And Puff tried to make it seem like, and I remember that when I was a kid, that it seemed like this was Biggie's like his peace tour with Cali. Like, I'm going back to Cali to make peace, and like it was his thing, just to find out that this is something Puff wanted him to do. Why did Puff need Big in LA at that certain time? It is what it is. You can draw your own conclusions from there. But I think more than anything, it just made me realize Puff is such a jealous dude, and I feel like that played into why his folks haven't done well, because he don't want nobody to do well unless he wants you to do well. So that's another piece that I think was a different thought process that I had just never thought about before. That like, dang, Puff is actually like a little pathetic, and he's a little bit, he's very jealous, like jealous. That's weak. That's so weak. The escort, y'all, and this is what I think is the piece that just sends me the most. They found this escort on whatever website, okay? Someone whose job was to be hired to have sexual relations, okay? And everything went as planned. He was soliciting, he was offering sexual services. You hired him for sexual services, and he performed the sexual services. He even went further to ask Cassie, y'all are having sex for all these days. How y'all keeping up? Cassie says ecstasy. He says, oh, bet. I'll take ecstasy too. He takes ecstasy, says he could roll for 2 or 3 days. Everything was good. So again, that brings me back to, if you could find people who are willing to do the sexual acts. He was cool with all the bottles of baby oil, okay? He was cool with 2 and 3 days of hunching. He was cool with whatever else y'all had going on. He was cool with y'all keeping his stuff in a jar and playing with it later. He was cool with taking the drugs to do these things. Why you gotta drug and rape other people if there's people that you can actually, you have the money and you can pay to do these things and they're willing to do it? Why are you ruining other people's lives? Just keep doing that. And that for me that's the big ball drop for me. It's like, once you realize, it's like, man, it's people that absolutely was down with, they was on whatever you was on. They was going to do whatever you needed them to do, and they were fine with the drugs and all that type of stuff. So you have a power kink. That's why you keep drugging people and raping people, because you got to control and you got to have it on your own. Again, you're pathetic. Like, that's so pathetic. That is so pathetic. So The escort is really the only one that was winning, I would say. But then apparently he's suing Cassie now for having chlamydia, which is also like, wait a minute, did you get chlamydia like 10 years ago? Because I'm pretty sure chlamydia is like a quick pill thing. Like, how is he suing them for chlamydia now? But nevertheless, the escort wanted to work and he worked. And he was paid well for years. 4 years. And that's why he never had no problem until now. Because you was paying him. Did he pay your people? That's the whole thing. Pay your people. And the last piece that I cannot leave without is Little Rod. Okay? Little Rod is probably the one person, and I've been saying this over and over again. I don't know what the reverse term for misogyny is, but maybe that's what I am. Like, maybe I don't have no tolerance for dudes acting simple. Okay? And I don't want to sound insensitive when I say this, but very, very fundamentally, a grown man saying he's waking up on different nights with different people in his bed. Sometimes a woman is in his bed next to him. Sometimes Diddy is in the bed next to him. You've also said that you know that you were raped. I mean, you knew that you were drugged and you woke up with your behind sore. Man, you woke up with a sore butt knowing that you had been drugged. Diddy had sent you videos of male porn saying this is what it takes to succeed in the industry. And you also say you understood that Diddy was a gatekeeper. So at some point you just knew what you had to do. The only grace I give Little Rod is that he's, like, I guess him and Puff and Justin might have spent somebody in that studio. Somebody, they heard some gunshots, somebody bang bang, they cleaned some stuff up, never to hear from the person again, right? So he did firsthand witness some kind of extra violence around them. However, grown man, this, you were one of the well later ones. I just don't understand how, if you woke up at any point with your butt hurting, you are aware somebody did something to you and you kept coming back because you knew he was a gatekeeper. So your desire to be in the industry outweighed everything else because that's what you said, right? So I don't want to oversimplify things, and please feel free to correct me if this thinking is not correct. If I'm being wrong, am I being hard on him because he's a man? Let me know. But I just don't understand, as a man, you wake up with your behind hurting. That means somebody did something to you and you kept going back. And he only agreed to $29,000. You worked for him for like 2 years. $29,000 that you didn't even get, and your butt sore, and you kept going back. Little Rod, you are the biggest loser. You are. I'm sorry. Like, I don't feel bad for you. I feel bad that anybody's being, abused, but you made a decision to sit in that, literally. Like, you made that decision and it just didn't work out in your favor. So, sorry to Little Rod. But the Diddy doc, like, I think what it really all comes down to is, like, it's the end of an era, right? Like, I feel like it's so ugly for the culture. It's so ugly for us. But the reality is, we are bigger than the culture. We are the culture. And so we can't be protecting people. I know somebody said that they was like, they wanted to protect him because he was the culture. But it's like, y'all, that's not okay. Like, these people kids. Everybody is somebody's child. And the things that he's done that people have known about, yeah, there's some levels of, yeah, this person wanted something and things are transactional. It seems very clear based on the testimony of, like, 50's baby mother Daphne. She ain't had no problem with nothing. Cool. But for everybody that did, it's just like, I think people underestimate, one, his level of power, and two, what abuse and manipulation really looks like. People be dragging Cassie. They drag that girl so bad. And for anybody, I have so much grace for her because at 19 years old, she was already dealing with Ryan Leslie. So she was already being groomed as a young woman entering the music industry. But ain't no way at 19 years old, Puff being who Puff was back then, that most people can tell us they probably would have, in some way, could have got caught up in some of that. Okay? Like, y'all can say that now, And it sounds good. At 19, you are so green and so manipulative. I mean, you're so easily manipulated because you ain't seen nothing. Okay? But be clear, some of y'all are still getting manipulated by your broke baby fathers now. So don't tell me how Cassie is this and she wanted this and you would have did and what you couldn't do and what you would never do. Because I don't believe it. I don't believe it from everybody. I just don't. Because I see what's going on now to a much smaller extent. The only reason you haven't is because you probably couldn't. So what you have access to, give that girl some grace. Don't say what she wouldn't do because you ain't never had the chance to do it. So it's just sad. I feel like it's really sad. I feel like that's the end of an era, and we just have to. Well, shit, we gotta move on because I got to go to work. But it's just sad to see one a black man go out like this, but two, it's sad that he really is like this. Like I hate that Diddy's a monster. Like I hate that. I hate that he's a monster. I hate that he's so nasty. I hate that he's a predator, and I hate that for him. So let me know what y'all think about the Diddy doc. That was a lot, but I feel like I've been talking to a lot of y'all about this doc over the last week. So I wanted to get a little bit of that off. Let me know how you feel about the doc in the comments too. Yeah, that was heavy. That was a lot. But good job, 50 Cent. I'm going to log off. That's all I got for y'all today. So make sure you comment, like, share, and subscribe because that's the key. Thanks for checking in with me, y'all. See y'all next week.